On this episode of the Jacob Beer Show, I'm so happy to have on Zac Barnett, who is the lead singer of American Authors. All the
Yeah,
Boilermakers definitely love the song Brick by Brick, but for those who aren't at BGR, you'll have heard Best Day of My Life or perhaps Best Night of My Life. How are you doing today?
I'm doing well, thank you. How are you? Of
Good. I appreciate you joining us. I send text out
course.
to decent amounts of people and sometimes don't always get back a nice response, but I appreciate you reaching back out.
Of course. Yeah,
So
happy to
thank
be
you
here
so
with you.
much.
Yeah,
And I
no
was bummed that
problem.
I had to miss the show in Chicago. I was so close to going because I was only 2.5 hours away from Purdue. So I was so close to going to that show
Next time.
for
Next
sure.
time. I feel like we play Chicago a relatively decent amount, so there will be another one soon.
Awesome. So take us through a little bit. 2006, the band forms. Band
Yeah.
mainly stayed together throughout the years, which is
Mm-hmm.
big. A
Yep.
lot of bands I've interviewed a couple amount of musicians and with touring members and stuff in and out of the flux. It changes a lot. Take us through
Sure
how you
does.
started the band and how you've stayed together for so long.
Yeah, I'm not really sure because I feel like we kind of became a band before we were super close friends, because we met in college, Berkeley College of Music, 2006, 2007 time
In
period, and
Boston.
in Boston, yeah, and I think maybe a couple things is one, we've always been really good at being self-aware and kind of understanding what's going on in the music scene at the time. And we've always been a rock band, but we've been able to kind of like change and adapt as the times change. And so we've kind of like tried a bunch of different genres, all within rock, but I think that helped us stay together. But I think even more so, we're all so driven individually that I think it's always been really hard for us to ever want to be the first person to drop out of something or to quit, to be like, oh, this is getting really hard. I don't think I can do this anymore. And when times were really tough, we all did have, different side projects or different jobs that we would do that, maybe even a few of us could see at some point, like, okay, maybe this is what I'm destined to do. And it's not the band. But with that being said, none of us ever quit. None of us ever took a step back. And by that point, we were all so close that we just kept grinding and never quit, and it paid off.
For sure. And of course, you start in 2006, around 2012, 2013, 2014. That's when you started getting big. Um,
Yeah,
Take us through the process of how you go from being in small places, 10, 15, 20 people to
sure.
slowly three, 400 to then, playing at Lollapalooza. And before
Yeah,
you know it, I saw some people have, at times asked you for autographs. Like you go from that, like just take us through the process there, of course, for being a young person with a band out of a music school to that.
it really was. I mean, obviously, there's a ton of different elements that go in from booking DIY tours, releasing our own albums, EPs, whatever, networking, going out in New York City, meeting people, all of those things that are all really important to really the main thing was the dedication to never quitting and just continue writing, working every single day and just putting in the time because that's what ultimately led us to write our first song, Believer, that people know. And then that went on to write Best Day of My Life. So it's like, it just kind of came out of nowhere. It's really as simple as keep writing. It's like I hate to say it, but keep writing and then you do all these other things like playing shows, networking, meeting people, staying on social media, putting yourself out there. It's like you are bound, I hope you're bound to write that song that can change your life. And that's what happened with us. We wrote those two songs that really changed everything. And from there, we saw our music on the radio, then we started getting offered these small tours, and then we started getting called in for meetings and meetings with labels and whatnot, and yeah, it snowballed.
And here you are today. You're doing it for
Yeah,
creative time.
it's a lot of hard work, and again, it's like I think all that stuff started really taking off in 2012, and we had really been actively working as a band since say like 2007. So it was really like it took a long time just to get to that point of writing the right song at the right time. And then after that, yeah, because you were kind of saying like, you guys started getting big around 2012 to 2014. So even when we released Believer and Best Day at first in 2012, it still took another couple years before those songs really blossomed into what they are today and what people know.
For sure. And do you have a favorite concert venue that you've ever played at? I know that's a tough one. Some musicians have been hesitant to say on the show, others have
No,
been willing
it's
to say. So
we've played a lot of really amazing venues, we've played like
Red Rocks.
like yeah, and I know everyone says that. My only thing, we played Red Rocks a few times and it's really, really wonderful. And it's beautiful, it's like a natural phenomenon. But the stage is really low to the ground there. So like as the front man, I'm like singing directly in the eyes of like the front row people, which it's kind of cool on one hand, but I still like a little bit of like the raised stage vibe. Um, I feel like it's so cheesy to say, but I now in my days, I love House of Blues. I just love House of Blues chains. It's almost like when you're like on tour for so long, you just get into the habit of like you go to a Starbucks at a rest stop because it's familiar. And House of Blues is almost like a familiar feeling. So when I step into one now, I'm like, this is so nice.
Interesting. And do you have a favorite country that you've visited? You know, with
Yeah, I love playing in Germany. The people are super sweet, and we've gotten to do a lot of really fun shows there. I don't know, like I just vibe with Germany. It's always really fun. I also love Japan. We got to go there once, and that was amazing. Yeah, that was awesome. We were in Indonesia this time last year, and I got to trip off to Bali afterwards, which was really fun. Oh, and on top of, I think like Japan and Indonesia were like my favorites to like hang out and visit. As far as playing, aside from the US, I love Germany and Mexico.
wow.
We yeah, we've had a lot of fun in Mexico and have done really well there. So
Wow, fascinating. And what would you say when you go out typically? A lot of people always wonder, what is it like during touring season? You know, they see they're always lining up, sometimes trying to get selfies or autographs and things like that when you're coming in and out. What's it like a day on the life on the tour? You know, and you don't got to take 10 minutes to answer, but kind of briefly,
no,
how it works from when you wake up to when if you're traveling out to go somewhere that next night. How does it kind of work?
it kind of
Describe that.
depends what the tour. Yeah, it just depends on what the tour is. I like any kind of tour. I think it's always really fun. When you're doing a bus tour, you have a lot more free time where you wake up, you go to bed on the bus, you wake up in a city, and you can just kind of like go to the gym, go to the local coffee shop, get lunch somewhere, whatever. Like you have a lot of fun options. Um, when you're doing van tours and stuff, I like that too because it's like a fun road trip with your friends and you get to see the countryside. And so I think the main things that I'll always try to do is eat somewhere local and go to the gym, work out, eat somewhere local, and yeah, that's the two most important things I'd say.
And then how often before a show do you normally get in there to start preparing for a sound check?
Again, it just depends. Like again, like bus tours, you'll get in super early, so you have all day and it's pretty easy. Van tours, yeah, again, you could like pull up, 10 minutes after your sound check has started. So it's like it's just kind of about being adaptable and being able to kind of throw and go. And I know a lot of people have trouble with that, and touring can be really, really grueling on some people. I personally love it, and I think for me, I got into music mainly to perform. I like to write and record a lot, but like I love performing. I think that's where my heart is. So for me, it's like I don't care. I like being with people. I like the energy of last minute, get up, sound check, whatever. I like I like the fear of maybe sometimes you go into a set where not everything's perfect. Your monitors or whatever you're hearing on stage isn't fully dialed in. Like I'll find a thrill in all that. So I love it all, man.
For sure. And then, of course, what would you say? You've played a couple instruments, of course. What's your favorite instrument if you had to pick?
Acoustic guitar is my main instrument, so that's my favorite that I play. So I've kind of like gotten out of electric guitar these days, and yeah, nothing else is like that. I'm not an expert in any other instrument. I think I'm the best at playing rhythm guitar, especially on acoustic. So I find that the most enjoyable.
Interesting. And one last question about touring. At times you'll go out into the crowd, of course.
Yeah.
As somebody who's been at concerts, you know what goes on before. Are you ever nervous? Like, hey, people are drinking and stuff or smoking, and here you are going out there. You don't know what's going to happen. I mean, there's always security, but are you ever nervous like that, or do you just know like I trust that I won't have a stampede or anything like that?
Yeah, I trust the crowds, you know. I do trust the crowds, and no, there's never really been a worry. And I think I'm at least, I'm a big enough dude where I can kind of fend for myself for the most part.
For sure. And take us through a little bit. Perhaps what are some new projects you're currently working on that you can potentially talk about? If not, I totally understand.
No, talk about anything, man. Yeah, so authors just we just dropped our fourth studio album less than a year ago, maybe like 9 months or so ago. And we got our fifth album we're gonna start releasing in January. And then on top of that, we're going in at the end of this month to start recording a sixth album. And then I'm gonna go in December to finish a solo album. And then last week, American Authors just recorded a live album. So all of that we're planning to release in 2024.
And I appreciate you coming on the show in the midst of all that because that's 3 or 4 projects going on. So I really
Yeah,
think
it's a lot. Yeah, it's a lot of stuff. And kind of going back to how this band has always been really willing to adapt and like recognize the times and what's going on in the music industry. I think now we're really seeing that content is king. And I'm seeing like my friends' bands who are still just starting out. I'm seeing them grow exponentially by constantly releasing singles and putting out music. And we've always done that. We've always been pretty quick to put stuff out. But now we're like, okay, cool. We've always put stuff out like maybe one song a month. But we want to take it a step further and kind of follow the trend that like Zac Bryan and a bunch of people in the country world are doing, where we're going to do like cool full length album, followed by a live album, followed by a solo album that's tied to authors, followed by another album like exactly a year later. So within a 12-month time, starting in January, we'll have like 40 songs out.
wow, awesome.
Yeah.
And a couple other things. Are you guys planning to tour next year?
Yeah. We're settling in on some tour stuff right now. So we'll have all that
And
info
people
out
can stay
soon.
tuned to all that on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter,
Yeah. Hmm.
TikTok, website
Yeah.
American
All over.
Authors.
Yeah.
So, and even Spotify nowadays, if you go up and pull it up, you can normally see where concerts are if you're following on Spotify as well. So,
Oh,
lots
yeah.
of
Yeah.
new
Yeah. It's all
kinky
up there.
digital world. So,
Yeah.
yesterday you got to have some fun. I saw, or maybe it wasn't yesterday, but you got to do some fun stuff.
Sure.
Take us through that a little bit. That must be a side passion of yours.
What? Just mountain biking?
Yep.
Yeah, that was yesterday. I'll go like, you know, 2 or 3 times a week,
Wow.
depending. Like, yeah, it's really close. So I live in Southern California. So, there's great mountain bike trails just like 10 minutes up the street from me. So it's pretty easy. And it's just fun. I love being outdoors. I like hiking. That's usually my main thing. I'll go running through the mountains with my dogs every morning. Then the mountain biking's a little more tough. Like that kind of takes it out of me for like the next day at least. So yeah, I'll try to alternate with the mountain biking versus the hiking. Yeah, it's just good fun, man. I try to go to the beach once or twice a week, get some surfing in, and yeah, I love the outdoors.
For sure. And take us through a little bit to end. I always like to end on a good note where people discuss their advice. A big thing about my
Sure.
show, of course, is although there are people that are seniors that listen, a lot of people are
Hmm.
largely college students or high school students. And some of them want to pursue music or a lot of goals.
Sure.
It's so hard to be the 1% to get there, to where you've gotten. So
Yeah.
congratulations.
Thank
Uh,
you.
it's very tough to get there. Somebody in podcasting, you could say entertainment. I know how tough it is. I'm in year 3 coming up on it.
Right.
So it's very tough.
Yeah.
So what would be your advice for somebody? Maybe not just music, but entertainment as a broad. You
Sure.
acting, you think of all sorts of things, movies,
Right.
things like that, and music, of course, which you're in. What would be your advice to somebody like that who's maybe
I
18,
think,
19, 20?
look, it's like if you're trying to be an entrepreneur in any way, it's going to be very difficult to make your own path. And so if you've made that choice, it doesn't even matter if it's music or art or finance or, whatever it is. It's tough to be an entrepreneur. So I hope that whatever it is you want to do, don't just pick something as a get rich scheme. It's like you want to be passionate about something. I know for me, it's like there was no backup plan with music. So I was all in always, and I always enjoyed it. Like I enjoyed living in a tiny closet apartment in Brooklyn, working a restaurant job so I could go out and meet musicians and play shows and save up money to record albums. You know, like I loved that time of my life. So I think really just like be passionate about something and understand that it's going to take a long time. So you might as well have fun when you're doing it. So
Were you a
that's my
bartender
biggest thing.
then? Were you a
Yeah,
bartender?
yeah. Yeah. Bartended and waited tables. And that was always kind of like my main thing to like bring in income while I was playing shows and whatever it was in the early days. And I liked that too. Like I had a lot of fun doing that. So I think just enjoy it. It is really, really tough. And it's really hard to be your own boss and to do that. So love it.
And real quick, just on the path of how you said you were a bartender, several people, not just yourself, but especially in country music in Nashville, they are all bartenders as well.
Yeah,
Before they ended up making it, would you say that helped you to develop traits on how to interact with so many different people? Because when you're at a bar, there's a lot of diversity. You know, you don't know who's coming in, so you're dealing with new people always. And with music, you got to relate
sure.
to everybody. You know, you can't if you
Yeah.
want to run a genre in today's world, you have to be able to connect to different communities of people. So would you
Oh,
say
for
that
sure.
being a bartender that helped you with traits to be a better artist once you ended up publishing big albums?
Sure. I mean, I've always been an outgoing person, so you know, waiting tables and bartending, it was just such an easy way for me to make a lot of money in a little bit of time. And it was also awesome. You know, I got to meet a lot of great people, a lot of people that I'm actually still friends with to this day that I met when when I first moved to Boston and started waiting tables at the Rock Bottom Brewery out there. Like I'm still friends with a lot of those people. So, and then from New York when I was working in East Village, like I still know a lot of those people and we still keep in contact. So, yeah, I think it's just I love it. You know, I really do. I think it's a good way to make good money and meet great people.
Awesome. So you highly recommend for any college kids once they turn 21
I
to
would, you know
bartend.
what? I always recommend it, for someone who's just trying to like get in, because I have like little cousins and stuff, and they've now just started college or whatever, and they'll ask me, like, well, I might get a job doing retail or this or that. And I'll always say, like, go to a restaurant and start either busing or I don't know, bar backing, whatever it is that you or hosting. It's like get in to a restaurant ASAP because there's so much room to move up and grow where you could start as a host or a busser and then you move up to a server, then you can move up to a bartender. And it's like if you get good enough at that, you could always go do that on a bigger scale where it's like I have friends who are making, six figures a year from like bartending and like they work 4 nights a week and then they can still go out to auditions for acting and then they'll just take like 2 months off and go like motorcycle riding across Thailand. So it's
Wow.
like, and it's not like they're doing all that much more work than if you were to work at like a smaller restaurant, but it's just like they got good, they worked up, and that's still their part-time gig that brings in a lot of money.
Interesting. Well, that's good to share for, I
So
guess, college kids too, who, are maybe don't want to try risking a path like you mentioned, how hard it is to get to the top like that. So
for sure, for sure.
there. Well, I
Yeah.
appreciate you coming on the Jacob Beer Show today. Any other advice?
Yeah, don't quit. Reach out to people. Don't be afraid to DM people and ask for things. It's like, you know, I still get a lot of the things that I get in my life because I just message people, you know. So the worst someone can say is no.
For sure. Absolutely agree with that. 120%. 120% on that.
Nice.
Well, thank you so much for coming on Jacob Beer Show today. I look forward hopefully
Of
seeing
course.
you guys in tour next year if you come to
Yeah,
the
totally.
Midwest within like a
We will.
200-mile proximity, either Cincinnati, Indianapolis, or Chicago, or even Purdue,
Awesome.
perhaps. So thank you
That'd
so
be
much for
great.
joining the Jacob Beer Show.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Take care.
Cool.